For thousands of years, the word angel has conjured images of winged guardians and celestial beings. But if we strictly follow the internal logic of the text, that mythological image dissolves into fine dust. To understand the actual mechanics of the term Malaikah, we must bypass centuries of theological commentary and look at the structural code of the language itself. This forensic audit begins by isolating the term to its three atomic linguistic primes, Mim, Lam, and Kaf. Mim represents the manifestation matrix, the process of energy or data transitioning into a localized physical state. Lam acts as the transmission vector, the directional line that connects an origin point to its destination. And Kaf is the structural capacity to contain or lock down a specific payload within a functional shell. When you compile these primes, a malak is no longer a person with wings. It is a manifested transmission of containment, a fundamental force executing a specific, bounded function within the hardware of reality. In the logic of the text, this root form is where governance and power intersect. It defines the ability to contain and direct the flow of a physical environment. Systemically, the Malaikah function as the executables of the universe, the autonomous, hard-coded subroutines of a cosmic operating system. They are the fundamental laws deployed by the primary source to maintain and run the physical infrastructure of existence. But if these are immutable laws of physics and biology, how do they regulate our daily lives? And where does the human interface with them begin? Viewing the universe through this technical lens changes the observation. It suggests that our relationship with the natural world is based on decoding and understanding its mechanics, rather than simply relying on traditional mysticism. We can see this engineering in the way the text describes the cosmological scale of these forces. It uses the term ajniha, which is traditionally translated as wings. Systemically, ajniha refers to lateral push or directional vectors of influence. Think of them as the mathematical constraints that determine how a force exerts itself in space. The text specifies these forces possess 2, 3, or 4 of these vectors. In physics, these numbers describe the degrees of freedom or the dimensions of influence that define how a natural force operates on matter. This provides the mathematical framework for the interactions we see in the physical world, paralleling the way we categorize forces like gravity, electromagnetism, and the nuclear interactions that hold atoms together. Understood this way, cosmological angels are the strict mathematical laws that make the physical universe structurally predictable. This system isn't limited to the macro scale of space. It scales down into the microscopic reality of human biology and cognitive behavior. The traditional concept of recording scribes on your shoulders translates to an automated environmental and biological data logging system. This is the absolute physics of entropy. Every choice you make and every word you utter modifies the structural record of your consciousness, much like biological memory encoding or the literal wiring of neural pathways. There is also a psychological module. These operational protocols interface with our psyche to provide neurological stability. When a human mind achieves alignment with natural laws, the system triggers a stabilization protocol. It transitions the brain out of threat response modes like fear and grief into a state of high-performance clarity. These forces are entirely deterministic. Gravity cannot choose to stop. A cell cannot invent code. They operate exactly as hard-coded. Our biology and our psychology are continuously regulated by this automated, inescapable loop of cause and effect. This brings us to a major conflict in the system, the introduction of the human prototype, Adam, into the established ecosystem of Earth. The natural system calculated the trajectory. A biological entity driven by instinct would naturally compete for resources, leading to ecological damage and violence. To counter this predicted chaos, the human prototype was injected with a unique, highly advanced data protocol called al-asma, which translates to the names. The names represents the cognitive faculty for symbolic thought, language, and the ability to categorize the laws of the universe through science and math. This is the ultimate human advantage, the unparalleled ability to analyze the invisible laws of nature and translate them to concrete, actionable data. This massive data capacity is exactly why all natural forces must prostrate to the human. This isn't a theatrical display of respect, it's a structural law. Nature is hardwired to yield to any conscious agent that possesses the data processing power to understand it. By mastering the names of aerodynamics, air resistance yields to planes. By categorizing the names of electricity, electrons yield to our devices. The only force in the entire system that refused to yield was Iblis, representing the destructive psychological law of deep, unyielding arrogance and ego. When humans use scientific mastery with arrogance instead of balance, they break the system's inherent harmony. The universe is a giant piece of hardware ready to run human software. But without ethical alignment, our mastery triggers the exact environmental collapse and warfare that the system predicted during its initial calculation.